Okay, there's a few things you could do here, in my personal mind, right? They give you a child.
They give me a what?
They gave, well, okay, yeah, not that. They gave you a Tartaglia. Okay, that's probably a better way to say it.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Gacha Interact. In this next episode of the GachaCast, we're going to be talking about a few things. Obviously, with these GachaCast episodes and the weekly news we give for you guys, we obviously look first and foremost at Genshin Impact, but also Honkai Star Rail. So some of the things we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be looking at the new Imaginarium Theatre in Genshin Impact, since that did just recently reset, and a lot of people are talking about that and trying that out for the first time. So that'll be a blast to look at. But we also are going to look at Stygian Onslaught, just because we've already done it, and a lot of people also have already been doing it or still are doing it or trying to, get their clears and whatnot. So we have a lot to say about that specifically, but maybe you can go to that section to find out what we'll talk about. And then we will talk about gacha revenue, actually, since at the time of this recording, it is July 2nd. So as of yesterday, we have the metrics on that. So we're going to take a look at gacha revenue for this past month. And then for Honkai Star Rail, we'll be talking about a little bit about the Fate stuff, kind of some continual talk there. But more specifically, we're going to be talking about some new kits that we have for new characters coming up in the future, mainly being Hysilens and Cerydra. Do those in-game prices have you down? Well, don't worry, Lootbar has your back. Lootbar is the go-to top-up service for many gamers around the world. You can enjoy instant delivery within just minutes of your purchase, if not even seconds, a secure transaction which is 100% safe, and part of that is because they don't require emails or passwords. All they need for, let's just say, Genshin Impact is your UID. And they don't just cover Genshin Impact, but many other games, as you can see here on my screen. You can do Honkai Star Rail, Zenless Zone Zero, Wuthering Waves, and just many other games. And the best part of all this is that new users get 10% off their first purchase. Click the link down in the description or pinned comment to start saving today. Now, let's get back to the content. Starting out with our first topic in Genshin Impact, we're going to be talking about the Imaginarium Theatre. So you can kind of see right here actually behind us, Vixen is sitting here in his Imaginarium Theatre chair, right there at the head of the table. So this Imaginarium Theatre, if you didn't already know or haven't taken a look yet, our three elements are Pyro, Hydro, and Cryo. So definitely seems a lot better than what we had for the last theater. I mean, the last theater we had Cryo still was there, but then Electro and Dendro, which made for some just really interesting teams, to say the least. And thankfully, while those three elements don't make a lot of sense with each other in the base version of the game, at least in that theater we had interesting buffs like Rhinegrass with the Dendro and Cryo relationship, which was very specific to that. So there was that going for it. But now we have a more integral three elements, Pyro, Hydro, and Cryo, which there's a lot more things you can do. A lot of just really good teams come out of that. Obviously, your Vaporize teams, your Melt teams, and whatever else you're doing. And now, obviously, as of the past few months, Freeze is now just back in the meta, so that's going to be good too. So there's just literally all of some of the best teams in the game are usable, actually, in this theater. So, I don't know, Vixen, what are some of your initial thoughts maybe on this theater? I know you actually did it today, literally just several hours ago, so what have you got?
Yeah, I mean, if I had any sooner time, I would have definitely done it as soon as physically possible. But doing it today, it was a very interesting feel, because if you look at the character lineup that we had, that we started out with, and then you kind of also saw the characters I had or didn't have. I had a Dahlia, obviously not leveled because reasons.
Mine's not leveled either.
Yep. But then, we did have Lenny, so I was given a free Lenny, which is fun. I always like playing Lenny, even though I don't have him, and I probably will never pull him, but at least he's a fun character to have every now and then. And then Xiangling obviously is just busted. Honestly, with this Imaginarium Theater, I actually have somebody pull out the tape recorder, because, Dad's saying something good about Xiangling for once. So I think
This is true.
I actually have good thoughts about Xiangling on this Imaginarium Theater, which is actually kind of surprising considering I always usually throw her in the trash can. But also, we started out with then Tartaglia, Child, whatever you want to call him. And then also we had Dahlia, obviously, and then Risley and Rosaria. So having this kind of idea with a lot of the different bosses and everything that were in the Imaginarium Theater, this one was, looking at the three elements right now, Pyro, Hydro, and Cryo, some of the most busted elements right now in terms of some of the best DPS characters like Malwika, Arlecchino with Pyro, and then also then looking at Hydro, characters like Nicolette have still been extremely strong characters. Never mind behind that, now we have Skirk as well with the Cryo units, and obviously Scuffier, and then you have Farina in the Hydro cast, you have Yelan in the Hydro cast. There's just like too many goated characters in these three elements, especially right now with where the game is at. So it's very interesting to see kind of that playthrough right now. this just seemed like it was going to be a very easy abyss. Now I know Rift, you had a little bit of a difficult time at certain stages, probably due to your own
Yeah, I kind of
your own
like hurt
purposeful.
myself because like in those first 5 or 6 stages, I'm like doing everything I possibly can to choose like the worst possible team that will still barely clear it in time or whatever to still get the Stella. And then I
Yeah.
get after I've done stage 9 and 10, I'm like, man, I still got all these uses on these characters. I still had 2 uses on Mulan, so I never even used her. I had a use on Hu Tao, a use on Mawika of all characters. Like, so I hurt myself too much in the beginning, but that's a skill issue. So
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one, and I think like just jumping right into kind of the different fights and everything we have here, we'll look at the 4 major bosses. Obviously, there are pieces here and there that are going to be better for pyro characters, like those lava little bosses that are kind of running around. Some of those are going to be kind of thrown in between on those lower acts that are not boss acts, so they'll be a lot easier to use pyro characters for, obviously, but obviously some things that are heavily good for things like freeze and whatnot as well, considering we do have Hydro and Cryo both here. So obviously you have some of the strongest reactions in here as well with Vaporize and Melt. But looking at the first boss we have, which was Capellius. So a Cryo Shield, Pyro characters are going to have an advantage. Let's be honest, nobody cares about Usia alignments and everything, or Numa alignments, so it doesn't really matter that much. But I do think that like having kind of, usually you'd think that the end boss would be kind of focused on maybe banking on Malwika, considering she's the best DPS right now. But obviously with Skirk kind of being here, it makes sense why at the end actually we have, you know, some cryo stuff. Yeah, once again, going back to Capellius, how did you feel for the first few rounds and then getting into Capellius? How were you feeling in your run at the very least?
So I have Hu Tao. So when I see Capellius, that's an easy excuse for me to want to use Hu Tao because Hu Tao deals with Capellius really well, and it's also an excuse for me to not use Mawika and save her as much as possible. But oddly enough, I say that, but my runs, I never got Hu Tao until the later stages, which is why I still had uses on her. So I had to do something completely different, of which I don't remember. One other thought that did come to my mind, though, is you can technically use Chevreuse for this, and it works really well because she is an Usia Fontaine character, so she can instantly get that shield off. That does give her a use because with these 3 elements, Chevreuse doesn't really have a use because you can't do an overload team. There's no electro characters you can throw in here. But if you want to get her out of the way, you can. All right, and you can use her for that. But hey, if you have Yoimiya, Hu Tao, those older pyro DPSs, they can still deal with Capellius pretty fairly easy. So if you have those, if you have Gaming is amazing. Gaming will absolutely shred that. So that's just what I did. If you have Arlecchino and Malwika, you're just better off, frankly. So that's just what I did. But those are some of my things for that first boss.
I just went up and used Arlecchino. I got Arlecchino very early as one of the first few characters I got, so there's pretty. I mean, I got kind of lucky on that front to kind of get what I got. So you know, taking care of Capellius was pretty easy. The great thing is, honestly, with this run right here, I can't really speak too much on. I can speak on what I did, but I feel like this was a little bit of a broken strat, especially because
like you just kind of had good luck through your run, like just good RNG.
Not even good luck and good. I mean, I did have somewhat good RNG, but each of the characters that I had, at least if you've been following the channel a little bit, you know that my account's more vertical investment, whereas Rift's is a little bit more horizontal. Because of that, though, the characters I do invest in are actually pretty good and pretty well built, and because of that, I just had all the characters in Pyro, Hydro, and Cryo. Those are the strong suits on my account, and so it just got to a point where it was like anybody I chose was gonna do well no matter what.
Yeah. That is another thing about this cast, like with these elements specifically, these are not only are these some of the best characters in the roster of the entire game, Mawika, Skirk, Nivelette, Arlecchino are all usable here. The list goes on. Farina, Yelan, there are so many. Not only are they some of the most powerful characters in general, I feel like a lot of these characters are just, if anything, characters that players probably went after, even if they were newer players. Like when Farina comes around, everyone on YouTube is saying you need to pull Farina. Or when Mawika comes around, speaking of which, she's coming around in literally a week or less at the time of this recording after Skirk and Shenhe with Emily. So you're gonna be hearing it from everyone who plays Genshin Impact. Oh, you need to pull Mawika, or at least think about her, or whatever. She's the best character in the game. You're gonna hear that even if you've only been playing Genshin for 2 weeks. You will very quickly find out that she is insane. So just all of these characters just, I feel like a lot of players have these characters, and so that's just maybe another reason why from the player base perspective this theater is just easier, because maybe more players have more access to this stuff, and then all on top of that they're just some of the best characters. So you
I
said you used your
will.
Arlecchino for the first boss, is what you said?
Yeah, I went for
Okay, yeah,
Capellius for the
makes
first boss,
sense.
so that makes a lot of sense. Looking into the next boss, we had the stupid solitary Suwani, which once again I say stupid, but honestly, just
I think Malwik is a cheat
now
code
that
on
I
that
could
thing.
have now that I pushed what's his name or what's her name kind of my Skirk was now kind of took care of the end of the bit or the end of the Imaginarium Theater here. Here now I could just use my Wriothesley kind of freely, and considering he was one of the first free characters I got because he was in the first characters were given, I kind of just took care of this pretty easily. I think I used like Wriothesley, another
It's like a budget free Steam.
it was a really budget free Steam. Like I didn't even use any extra. I think I used the given Dahlia. I used Rosaria, Wriothesley, and I think I threw in Child in there for fun, and I just never pulled him
Yeah,
out because
yeah.
I just used
Yeah,
him up as a charge.
so
Um,
speaking of Wriothesley and Child, because they were available as the trials, the
mhm.
trial Child, which is fun to say, just I don't think I could get him anything
Hit
over
like
like
a
a
wet spaghetti
50k.
noodle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, just
yeah.
oh my goodness. Now the trial Wriothesley actually kind of feels okay, oddly enough,
So you
and
used
I think
you used the
I
trial
obviously
Wriothesley.
I used my Wriothesley,
Oh, okay,
but
okay.
I did try it out for one time because I was like, okay, if trial Child feels this bad, what do the trial Lenny and the trial Wriothesley feel like? And of course they felt better. Now that could also just be because they're much newer characters. Those are 4.x characters, and Child's all the way back in 1. Whatever with Zhongli. So maybe that's what it is. I don't know. There was all the world of a difference though between those characters. But yeah, so you used Wriothesley on the Swanee.
Yeah, I
And that
got
did
rid of.
pretty good.
Yeah, that using
Okay.
honestly budget team, and I mean I have the C0R1, but my Wriothesley is not. I mean once again he's heavily invested into, but it's just a
He's a really good
C0R1.
build.
But yeah, so yeah, it's a pretty good build. But honestly, like considering I was able to get through this pretty easily, I think most people would be able to. And just kind of running this plus, I mean, a trial Wriothesley with like your own Rosaria, or even a trial Shenhe. I mean, not trial Shenhe, a trial Rosaria. I used with my Rosaria. And I literally used Dahlia. I used 3 characters out of my 4. I didn't even use a 4th one. So if you have
Yeah, I
characters
mean,
that are either extra buffing, like a Charlotte with like a noblesse or something, which heals at the
absolutely, yeah.
same time as giving an attack buff for your Wriothesley, you'll be able to kind of substitute. I do have the weapon, but you can kind of substitute some extra buffs and everything with that 4th character that I didn't technically use, and you might actually get some good kind of playtime with this. But
Yeah, it's another good excuse to actually use Dahlia, because I feel like Dahlia and Child for this
yeah,
theater are just like, how can I just get them
get
used
rid of
up?
them. Yeah,
Maybe use an
it
uber
get
powerful
rid of
team
them.
and just throw them in the 3rd or 4th slot and don't even pull them out on the field or something like that.
Yeah.
But I actually used Mawika for this. Mawika
Okay.
is
Oh,
just a
you
freaking
Malika early.
cheat code. Yeah, Mawika one taps this thing. If you are able to, you freeze it and then you shatter it because she's a claymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can actually shatter her with her burst too. And she just easy claps it for 1,000,000. It's just as soon as you get it frozen and
Insane.
shattered, 1,000,000 just dead. So that's what I did.
Yeah, just immediate cheat code. There you go. Best DPS in the game. One shots.
Fremine might be
Imaginarium Theater
viable
boss.
here because of Shatter, but he's also a Claymore. The physical damage is getting through once it's in that down state. So if you have, or you guys watching, if you have a built Fremine, that's an excuse to get a character like that used up to save your more powerful characters. Just a fleeting thought I had.
Yeah, just keep in mind once again, you're gonna have to remember that it does jump between its Hydra and Anemo state. So with the Hydra state, yeah, it's gonna work extremely well. And not to say that he wouldn't work well with the Anemo while he's, while the
You would
is
need good
grabbing.
application from your off-fielders.
Yeah, so you're gonna want to focus on, if you have Xingqiu or whatever, and using that with there, or, you're gonna want some extra of those characters, like you said, Rift, that have that high application, so you can kind of make sure to kind of, knock them out of that state as well, and then you can switch back to. Once you get your kind of rotation through, then you can pull Fremine out at the end. I think that just to be honest, with it, and kind of go into a smart idea with it. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like you said though, I mean, even if you don't do Shatter, technically Melt can still, if you freeze it and then do Melt on top of it, it still brings it out and then goes into an immobile state, so then can kind of get damaged. So Anyways, enough about the Suwani. The next thing that we have is the Kukasaur. So the Gold Flame Kukasaur, that huge flying pyro bird that likes to fly up above everyone's heads. Okay, there's a few things you could do here, in my personal mind, right? They give you a child.
They give me a what?
They gave, well, okay, yeah, not that. They gave you a Tartaglia. Okay, that's probably a better way to say it. And they give you a character that you could technically use against this. The thing is that Child's application is not that fantastic. So
if you can even hit the Suwani when it's flying all over the place.
Yeah, so I would just, I would be careful about that. That's number one. But obviously, just looking at what's going to be busted for it, because that's probably what you care about most anyways. Farina. Farina was actually, for me at least, when it was lower, was able to just constantly attack it with the little things. And then honestly, you could just run around and just wait for it to eventually fall. And then you can use like a Hydro Catalyst, like a Barbara, or obviously I used Nivelette against this boss. I could use a Nivelette and Farina combo. And then I kind of saved my other characters. So I used like, I don't know, I think I used like a Farina. And then I used, I think, a random character I was just not going to use. I don't know. I just threw in some random character. I was like, all right, I just need a fourth slot here that I'm not going to use later. That's kind of how like the Imaginarium Theatre kind of goes. But that's at least what I did here. Play what it wants you to play, and you can usually do pretty well at least, and put yourself in a good position. You may not get all your stars, and you may not go absolutely insane, but if you play how the game wants you to play, especially with the Imaginarium Theatre, it's much like Star Rail on that matter. If you play the way it wants you to play, you'll be at a much better advantage than if you try to go against the current and just try to go by raw power, which that should be pretty basic information enough. But you said you also used a Nivelette to run against
Yeah,
this?
I did Nivelette and Farina, basically, because Farina is just too good for this boss in particular, because even when it is flying, I believe Farina is still able to hit it most of the time, so it's really helping on the time, so it's not just wasted time. If you don't have Farina, you can, like you said, Xingqiu is really good when it is low to the ground. Just go to town with normal attacks. Even if it's just Xingqiu himself, it doesn't care. You don't care who, this is not the time for damage. You just need to get that, if his burst is active, get those normal attacks out so he's, taking that shield off. Obviously, Nivelette's a catalyst, so it's really, really easy. And so technically, even Mulan would work. Because she's a catalyst, you could just do regular normal attacks when it's low, and then when it is actually in a down state, then you can do a proper setup and get a nice 300k from your actual, Sharky Surfboard normal attacks. So there's a way you would have to play around that, but that would probably work. I haven't tried that though. I'm just saying it works in my head at least. So yeah, I mean, like Farina is the MVP for sure.
If you're trying to play against this boss specifically, and you don't have Farina, there's a few ways that you can kind of go about this. When it'll start throwing like a bunch of missiles at you guys at a certain point, wait for it to then throw these little like pyro like little things onto the ground, and then just go up to them and smack it with anything in Hydro. I mean, once again, catalysts are going to be best for you, so if you can use a Barbara or something here, it's a free character, you might as well. It should be able to get rid of that
get that Mona, dust her off,
Yeah, Mona, there you go too. Those types of characters will be able to knock and get rid of those things. If you want it to get close to the ground because you don't have anything to really do, leave them alone and then just stay away from those pyro things, because it's going to come down and slam on top of it. So you can break one and then just wait for the other one to slam down onto it, and then it's low to the ground now, and then you can do all your application with your Xingqiu and maybe your Yelan or something, and then break the shield that way.
Like even
there's a few different ways you can kind of play it with the Kukasaur, but obviously having the Farina, having the Hydro.
The point being Hydro.
With Yelan, yeah, and Child. So, anyways, that's once again. I mean, it literally says Hydro characters have an advantage. It's just more or less how you use it. You can technically get around it in certain aspects. Then obviously we have the Automaton. Obviously just the boss that is in Skirk's Shadow.
Premiere.
Yeah, so I mean, biggest thing here is just constant cryo, no matter what. So I mean, I can't say anything. I had Skirk, Farina, Skirk.
Your speaking privileges
Shenhe
are revoked. You're too powerful to even talk about this. It's too easy.
It felt a little disgusting. I wasn't using Farina. I was using Yelan instead, Escoffier, and Shenhe with my Skirk. So
yeah, that's busted.
I kind of
what's your advice?
That thing
just
in 20
smack it in
seconds.
10 seconds. That's literally your advice. that boss is just sitting on the ground doing nothing with a team like that.
Well, and
but
the
yeah,
funny thing is, like, going to the Stygian Onslaught, we'll talk about in a minute.
Oh,
This
yeah.
thing was just so
Totally
much
different.
easier to fight against. So, and I didn't even have Farina here, so it was just like, it was a nice change of pace. I'll say that much.
It
'Cause I've
is
been
funny, like
burning
after
through that
just
boss over and over
grinding the
again.
Stygian Onslaught, you come to this and you're like, that's it? Like, oh, okay.
I was happy, but I was
Right.
able to use like
Not even a
Skirk's
full
special
rotation. What's going
burst.
on here?
Not even like her. I was able to use
Oh,
like
yeah,
I
yeah.
purposefully
The
got out of
actual
her skill.
burst.
Yeah, to do where she kind of like rips through the void and does like her big damage hits, and that's what I was like
Really
doing
cool
instead of like
animation.
actually trying to do normals. So, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
what did you
I
do
think
here?
like I obviously used Skirk as well. Just to C0 R1. She's not done yet, which just gives more perspective on how busted she is. But you know, Escoffier was doing a lot of the work there. I think I used Yelan.
I would tell
Yeah,
people to
the pretty
probably
typical
save your
team.
Risley for
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the
that
trial
boss.
Risley, if I'm being honest, could deal with this,
Suwani as well.
especially if you have Escoffier. Like, if you don't have anyone else, if you don't have a cryo DPS, period, take advantage of that trial Risley and save him specifically for that Suwani and that very final boss. It will feel good because even if his damage is lower than some other characters you have, the gimmick with
consecutive
that
cryo
last
is gonna
boss
bring
is
down
that
the
cryo.
damage.
You need to have just a lot of cryo on that thing so it can just stay in a very vulnerable state.
Yeah,
You
it,
pull
it's
out
just
the
kind of
old Ayaka too. If you have Ayakas and Ganyus, those will
very
work
true.
absolutely
Just
fine.
dash until infinity and basically just spam normals. I mean, there's just so
Yeah.
many different things you can do here, no matter what. I mean, once again, they were giving you a trial Risley. You like you said, Ayaka is a great point to bring up. I mean, technically, I would probably the only character I would probably stay away from would be someone like Ganyu, just because her consistency
She's
isn't
probably
all
not
that
fast enough.
consistent.
You'd be using
Yeah,
her
for
burst
for
more, maybe as a
consecutiveness, but
Ganyu as a free support for maybe like Ayato, like that would work. I'm not gonna say Ayato, Escoffier, support Ganyu and Shenhe. Well, I don't know why you'd use Shenhe there. Maybe if you just happen to have her. Farina, that would work fine. Sit Lolly would work fine. Like it just kind of
there's
mix
a
and
lot of
match
obviously
as a
just
freeze team.
consistent cryo is the biggest thing. Obviously, Skirk is very helpful. Having a Scofier makes that even better. But if you do have, like you were talking about, Sitlali, and you don't, burn it on a Malwika, then you can also make your life easy here.
Hey,
But
pull out
anyways,
the
I mean,
Chongyun.
Imaginarium
work.
Theater is just kind of like this one. I think a lot of people it's going to be a little bit more, I guess, what you would say is user friendly, a word that one of our friends used, and I kind of really go well with that because it really is. Once again, Pyro, Hydro, and Cryo are one of the bigger elements of what's used right now. And like you said, was another very good point. A lot of people are pulling these types of characters as well recently. So if you're pulling these types of units, most people are going to have them anyways normally. And so it makes the most sense. This Imaginarium Theater is just going to be really easy. So if there's any time to start actually caring about endgame, surprisingly right now is a pretty smart idea. Except for Stygian Onslaught. That's another a huge battle, which, speaking of Stygian Onslaught, man, oh man, I'm going to get up out of my chair. Man, oh man, do I have something to say here. We'll stay in the Imaginarium Theater area right now. I might go back in it later, but I guess we wanted to talk a little bit more about Stygian Onslaught, considering the whole fact recently we talked about it last week, going over the idea of like how it was maybe a little bit of a, there were some issues, you're thinking about how strong it's going to be or whatever, and how basically no one can do the two highest difficulties, in getting into Dire. You can't basically do it unless you have multiple constellations among multiple characters. You're just not gonna have a good time. The other thing to keep in mind is, I do have a very good Malwika, and I have a C2 Malwika, C2 Shilonen, and then I have a C2 Kanish and a C2 Emily with a C6 Xiongling, C6 Bennett, and then a C2 Skirk, a C2 Farina, C2 Shenhe, and C2 just everywhere, right? The next
Must be nice.
Stygian Onslaught you're gonna go against is not gonna be focused on Malwika, Skirk, burning for Emily. It might be plunge focused. It's like, we want a bunch of attacks here. Now the next one, we already know what it's going to be on. So Chaska is going to be very, very nice to go against because the Papilla is going to come back. So Rift, you're going to have a great time on that one.
Burning, Kanish, Emily, would probably still be good again.
Kanish burning is still going to be fine.
What you used on the lava boss, just use it. Yeah, and then with that third boss is the new boss. It's probably
the
going to
new
be
boss, which
really
is
vulnerable
an FA.
to lunar charge thing. So
which
basically,
we
if
already
you didn't
talked
pull,
about. Yep.
if you didn't pull Anefa, it's gonna be a struggle.
Exactly. Now, my
Since
whole
it's just
thought
another
here is
problem.
I'm just gonna pray that Nevalette, Farina, and Yaimiko and Fischl or something, I don't know, is gonna be able to carry me. But
I'm gonna pull out the girl Ifa or Mizuki. Hey, if someone can do it with those characters, I will honestly just be like,
you know what? You actually
just
beat
different.
Genshin. The game's not over yet, but you somehow
you're
just
actually
beat Genshin.
skilled. Like
If you did it with Ifa, I'd be like, okay, honestly, it's Ifa though. If you did it with Mizuki, I'm just gonna bend down and worship because that's not even like a viable thing anymore. That's crazy. But
well,
no,
I had
honestly.
C6 and Efa. Oh, well, there's your answer. Okay, C6 Farina,
Yep.
C6 and Efa. All right, okay. All right.
Yeah, exactly. But I think like the biggest thing here, going back to actually looking at Stygian Onslaught, obviously we're talking about the next one, but this one right here, in general with Stygian Onslaught, I've been talking about Rift about this for the past week. I don't think I've stopped ranting about it, is the weapons. Now, I know a lot of people have a lot of issues with the weapons, and some people don't. It's kind of a toss-up on what you want, what you don't want, how, someone brought up a very good point, which was like, some other games that use like base skins are really disgusting and trash. I mean, go ahead and look at Raiden's, sword though. Like Raiden's sword looks pretty cool. Never mind. Look at, Black Sword. I'm using on little guy right here. I mean, this Black Sword actually doesn't look that terrible. All things considered. It's actually a
considering
pretty
how
good
old
looking
it
weapon.
is too.
Right. Looking, it's actually, if that came in as a skin and it was just a regular steel sword, and we got this as a skin, that'd actually be kind of cool. You know what I mean? Like, I think that like overall, I'm trying to play devil's advocate here because I feel a different way, but I think it's still a very good point though, that like overall we are still kind of blessed with some absolutely amazing looking weapons that kind of just look cool and have really different aesthetics, and weapons that turn into literal firearms. So I think like overall, and turn into dual blades. I think that like overall, like these different things are very, very cool and very interesting. Skins in general with Stygian Onslaught, in my personal opinion, I think just need to be changed a little bit so that they're a little bit easier to gain. Now, I don't mean that everyone should just be able to have them. My fix to the possible problem of not being able to finish dire difficulty, therefore not able to get the skins, is you have your 3 higher difficulties, right? So it's dire, fearless, and then what was under
Menacing,
fearless?
I think.
Yeah,
Dire,
so let's
fearless, menacing,
let's
hard.
hope that we're correct on that one. So menacing, and menacing, I think is like they'll get like 1 point, right? Fearless, if you clear that, it's 2 points, and then dire is 3 points, right? If you get 3 points, you can use a 1-for-1 exchange for one of the skins of the different weapons that you have. So you could get a pyro sword, and you could put it on all your pyro characters, and it would be that sword. But you could only have that. And then you could maybe grab a cryo claymore, and you could only put that on your cryo claymore characters. Stuff like that, right? Whatever those swords do, you would only be able to get one of them. So it would be a cryo claymore. It's not all the claymores and not all the cryo set. It is just that one weapon as a skin, but it's permanent. The issue with Stygian Onslaught right now, in my personal opinion, is that it's just constantly rotating over and over again. So it's like you have them sometimes, you don't have them other times. You have them sometimes, you don't have them other times. Just depends on whether Stygian Onslaught absolutely beats you to a
like you won't
pulp,
be able to show that, hey, I
doesn't.
was able to beat the very first season 1 of the Stygian Onslaught 2 years from now, and people will be like, okay, well, what do you have to show for it? Nothing.
Right, and it's not smart for us to ask the game to make every 40 days make a new set of weapons for literally all the different elements, all the different all the different archetypes of weapons. So I think that I think honestly this type of system allows you to
focus on other things.
Right, there's 7 elements, and I think there's 5 different weapon types. That's 35 different types of weapons that they could get. If you get 3 points, if you're on dire difficulty, burning it out 3 times, that still takes almost 12 different rotations of Stygian Onslaught to get every single one of those skins. Now they're about 40 days, the Stygian Onslaught runs. That's 12 times 40, 12 runs times 40. The people that are clearing dire difficulty, your whales, are over a year. It takes them over a year to fully grab every single weapon. I think it's okay for us to ask that once a year they come back and redo Stygian Onslaught's weapons. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's just that much of a, I don't know, of a better idea in my mind on how the game would work. Now, is that a perfect fix? Is that a good fix? Probably not. Is that something that people would want? Probably not. It's just my personal thought process of how I would change it if I could. I have no clue if that's going to fix it. That might just anger more people. I don't know. At this point, I'm not even sure that throwing people 50 polls would even make them happy about this point. So I don't know.
Yeah. For me, and I know people think differently about this, but what kind of eases me about the whole thing is, number one, I'm not really a cosmetic person, but I'm trying to think as if cosmetics are everything, okay? Because I know that, like, Vixen, cosmetics are a big thing to you, like, for even just, like, other games. I know you play, like, maybe some more competitive games, some player versus player type games. Cosmetics, like, are cool, It's like, I got this cool thing, I really like it, it looks awesome, and you
Just
can
get
kind
to
of
show
show
it
that
off.
other players
Yeah.
see it. It's just, like, that is seriously a part of that game. Like, that's half the game, almost. That's why the cosmetics are a whole thing. So for here, one thing that kind of eases me with the whole thing is the fact that the skins are temporary. The fact that you can't even have them for over 40 days makes me think kind of like, well, what's the point? Why would I sweat so hard just to get that to not have it later on anyways?
Right. Yeah.
Like, now I'm not as pressured to feel like I want to even do it. If they were permanent, I would feel a little bit more drive to actually try to get it if it was possible for me. It's really not even, I can't clear Dire, not even close, because my characters I'm horizontal investment account. Like, it's just different. Now, I still build my characters well, just not ridiculous, not like top 1%. I'm still like, if I get to top 10, that's really good for me. If I get most of my characters, if you were to look at my Akasha right now, this will just help solve the whole thing of what I'm trying to say. If you looked at my Akasha right now, all of my main 5-star limited characters are sitting around top 20%. Some are top 10, 15, 20, 25. That's around where basically all of my limited 5-stars sit. To give you a kind of example of what my account kind of looks like. So not ridiculous, but not like bad. But even so, I have C0 Mawika. I use her with Shilonen, Sitlali, Bennett, and I cannot even get close on Dire. I get the boss to like 1/3 health. And now I know there are people out there that have done this, the Dire difficulty, with completely C0 characters on all 3 bosses. I know that that's out there. I'm not that much of a sweat though. And once again, I don't think my characters are built enough. Like, if I handed my characters to those same people, could they still do it, kind of a thing? I don't know. That's just speculation at that point. My point is, though, I'm not really driven to even care about getting the skins because they're temporary. I think the skins need to have more permanence than just 40 days, or just straight up be permanent, because Dire difficulty is ridiculously hard. It's just absolutely
It should
insane.
feel like more of
Fearless is already very, very hard. We know people that have constellations and can't clear the Fearless difficulty, and the main culprit and the main reason they can't isn't because, oh, it's skill issue, oh, they just need to get better. No, it's because they don't have the characters that the game mode is specifically telling you to have without telling you to have them, if that makes sense. Like, if you do not have Arlecchino and Mawika, like, if you don't have either one, I don't know how you're going to do the Tulpa. You have to have a ridiculous Lenny or a ridiculous Hu Tao, a ridiculous Pyro DPS. Like, you have to have either Mawika or Arlecchino. I don't have Arlecchino, I only have Mawika. Mawika has to do the Tulpa on my account, and it barely gets it. I think I do it in like 117 seconds. So I only have 3 seconds left with Mawika. I don't know how I do. I've tried it with Hu Tao and Lenny just to see how far they could get. They didn't even get close, and that's what I thought. It's just crazy. And then it's the same thing with the other 2 bosses. If you don't have a cryo DPS, I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to do that last boss. We have a friend with a C6 Arlecchino and a C6 Eula, like, not mega whale, but like just kind of like goes hard and invests hard into the characters that he likes. But because he doesn't have Skirk or Risley or even Ayaka or Ganyu, to my knowledge, he can't do that last boss. There's nothing he can do about that. There's no amount of skill to solve that. If you don't have a cryo DPS, I don't see you doing it.
And that's exactly why when I was talking about whales in general, that's why I'm saying, like, you might have it, you might spend, what's the number for the average amount of money it takes to C6 a character rift again?
I think it's
$2,000?
bare minimum 2,000.
Okay, let's say it's
maybe not bare
okay.
minimum, but like it's average 2,000 if you like win 3 50/50s and lose 3 50 or something like that.
Okay, so once again, let's just go with the two grand, right, aspect.
Still a lot.
You spend that, let's say 3 times. Let's say you only use it on the DPSs, right? So you're only using it on Mawika, Arlecchino, and Skirk here. Or maybe you're spreading those constellations out among a few different characters. And so there's a few different ones.
Three
There's like 3
C2s.
characters. Yeah, 3 C2s in each team, right? That's 6. You just spent $6,000 to do so in the past little while. That's an insane amount of money. And
to get a 40-day
the next
skin.
Imaginarium Theater is going to be Chaska based. Could you probably do it with that C2 Malwika, C2 Shilonen, and C2 Sitlali? Probably. We'll have to see, when that Papilla comes out and how absolutely disgustingly annoying it is. But if you used the Kinesh Emily actually instead, it probably could do something to it. Yeah, you'd probably actually get a pretty good amount of damage in there. So if you kind of did that, yeah, which is really good against the lava boss that I have here already set up. So okay, you do that, and then the next boss you do the C2 Malwika. Is the next boss going to be, it's all about electro charge. So now your C2 Skirk, C2 Farina, C2 Escoffier are kind of outmatched. So now do you have to pull now an Effa to actually make up for it? Do you not have to pull an Effa? Can you make it up through damage? Most likely not on dire difficulty. There's just too many options. Yeah. And you're already probably pushing time with multiple C2s, never mind, a few C6s. I just think that overall, you could spend $6,000 now and still only have, like you're talking about Rift, for 40 days, not even a permanent skin, like a temporary skin. And you just spent $6,000. You know what I mean? Like, I think that, once again, I'm talking a lot about it.
Go buy a life-size replica of a weapon. Like, go buy a life-size, or like the Crimson Bale, whatever it's called. Go, like, that would be cooler to have in your room.
Rising.
And you get to keep it.
You could do that, and it'd be even less than that. But I think overall, to play devil's advocate, I guess, would be to think about the opposite end, right? To think about, what would it be like if you ran, you did something else, So to play a devil's advocate, I saw some people talking about, well, at the end of the day, they are just skins, right? So I mean, does it force us to now want to actually do that? No. I feel bad for the people that did go after constellations, get this type of end game, and all that their reward really is a 40-day skin. That's, I guess, more or less what I'm up in arms about. I'm not asking to make it, once again, you could ask to make it easier, you could ask to do this, you could ask to do that with Stygian Onslaught. Yeah. I just say make the stuff that you're given maybe a little bit more permanent, that's all.
Right. Like, thankfully, it's not Primogems. If it was Primogems, that would be a whole nother issue on a whole nother level. Like, that would be crazy.
Yeah.
One of the things I thought of for a reward, like if there needs to be a real reward for a whale, or they're looking for, the end game content that the whales were asking for, and this is that, this on dire difficulty is definitely whale content.
Let them flex
absolutely
somehow.
Sure. Like if a full C6 team will not be able to one rotation, so it actually allows C6 characters to have 2-3 rotation, whatever it may be. Maybe there is someone out there that can run rotation. I don't know. I don't play with C6 characters, okay, guys? But the point is, when you have characters that strong, the game becomes really boring because you're just actually overpowered, and you're breathing on stuff and they're falling over and dying. Like, so this is really fun for people that actually want to, whip out the C6 Malwika, the C6 Shilon, like just crazy teams, and it actually be really like have this novel kind of fun that they almost forgot because their characters are just ridiculously powerful. So we've got the content now, but like you said, Vixen, the reward just you're not doing it for the reward, if we're being honest. You're just doing it for the sake of the content itself and being able to actually use your really uber powerful characters. I think one of my ideas, and I talked about this with you, Vixen, one of my ideas, and once again, maybe not the best idea, but it's an idea nonetheless, is maybe instead of a weapon skin, we could have something like a permanent player card, so that when you actually like look at people's accounts or UIDs, or like when you're looking to join someone's world, you can actually see if people have that name card and be like, wow, they actually cleared that? That's crazy. Because like a weapon skin's not going to be seen unless you're already in the person's world and they're using the weapon, or they have to show you the weapon. Like, and then another step further is like you have to see it. You have to notice that. You may not always see that. So I don't know. It's just like that's just my thought. I think a name card is the answer.
I mean, and that's exactly, I don't know if you remember, when we first talked about that's what I said, and I know you were a little bit like kind of iffy about it at first, because it was a little bit of it was an interesting topic, because when we first talked about it, it was such a weird, what do you even do at that point? You know what I mean? Like, what can you do to a C6 player that actually wants, like at this point, and I was like, look, they just have to flex. Like, if you're really bringing it down to it, they need something that says, like, I need a special name card that's going to allow me to literally flex. So if my friends can see it, so that, and I brought to the idea, and the reason I say this is because I brought up the idea of how they do it in Zenless, where you have like the little thing shown where like it
Yes,
shows
like with
your
the
Shiyu
M3, the
defense number.
M6, and that
Well,
too.
well,
Yeah, I
that
thought you were
too.
going.
The M3 and the M6.
I thought you were going there.
But that's just constellations. You know what I mean? And yes,
Yeah.
that is one
But
idea.
but
But
it is a name card
specifically,
that you can see.
the idea in the name card where you can have like a badge that you can throw. Now you can throw season 1 and season 2. So once again, don't make that temporary either. Make it so that it can hold on. Maybe the idea. It shows season 1 whatever, and you can have maybe 3 maximum on your whatever, and it would allow other people to have fearless up there, and fearless season 1 or fearless season 2 or whatever, and maybe go through the different seasons that we have Stygian Onslaught.
Yeah.
I just personally, I think that that's another, like you said, that's just another good way to do it. I think that if you did something like that, that would also be something of a way that's not really giving an actual straight up reward. It's giving what these people, and I say these people, I say, like they're so different. Like that's probably what people who want to flex, that they have C6 characters, or they just want to show it. Like they don't even want to flex. They're just like, this is really cool. Like look at what I have. Like it's kind of cool to see and like have something that like not a lot of the player base has. So that's just something else. I think it could be easily fixed by that. I totally agree.
Yeah. And I agree. I didn't realize you were going to those little badges. That would be awesome. And I know we have the thing in like our whatever you call like the player, when you go to check out a player's, I guess, profile is what we can call them. In the bottom left, you can see if they've cleared what is their current abyss status on the current abyss, their Imaginarium Theatre, and there is actually now a Stygian Onslaught little thing there. But how can you actually view past ones? And I feel like it would just be through seasonal name cards or something like that. That's like, okay, this for season 1. But like if you look at my information, I guess that's what it's called, but like you can see there, so it does have my fearless difficulty time and everything, so like you can check that out. But I don't know, name card would be cool. Another example of where they could have a cool graphic, and it looks really nice with maybe a character background or whatever. But I think really honestly at the end of the day, for a whale reward, I feel like the reward itself is the content. If I had a C6 character, I'm thinking about this just for myself. If I pulled a C6 on a character I just really like, or I just wanted to have a really powerful vertically invested team, so maybe I did C2 on the DPS, C2 on the support, C2 on this, just the point is a really powerful team, I feel like the content is what I'd be asking for the most over just a tangible reward.
Probably, yeah.
Because I want to actually use it, and the joy and dopamine of actually using a really super powerful team, and it's still requiring
and the
brain
boss
cells
almost fighting
is
back against
the
you,
reward.
yeah.
Like that would be fun. I feel like that's what whales maybe for the past 4 years, especially early on, were probably asking for. Like, man, Abyss is just too easy. And so as we got to Sumeru, especially got into Fontaine, and recently all throughout Natlan, I feel like that's when the whales started to be like, yeah, I dig this, because the content's harder. Not necessarily for them, but the content just feels better to do, because now like, oh wait, it's not dead yet, I have to do a second rotation. Like, oh,
I think I
okay,
enjoy
great.
I enjoy still also the idea of like almost Stygian Onslaught making you do your runs over and over again by using condensed resin or regular resin or fragiles fun. By doing and getting like your extra runs. And once again, it's probably for those people who are running in with your C6 characters, instead of running into a domain and one tapping everything every rotation with a Mawika, your C6 Mawika. Now you can kind of have something to have a little bit of strength against you as you're doing your you're clearing your resin. You know what I mean? And I think that to me is just kind of cool. It allows, for me at least, it makes my like resin time like a little bit longer, but it allows me to play the game a little bit longer and actually have fun. Think about the rotations as well, because I'm gonna be honest, sometimes I'm playing in the like domains, I am doing the same thing over and over again. All I am focused on is like how much time I'm like getting. So it's like, okay, I just cleared that in 17 seconds. I want to do it in 14 seconds. So it's like, okay, that one was 15 seconds. I can do a better rotation here. That's all you're doing at that point. But in this Stygian Onslaught, it's actually like making you kind of go a little bit harder about it. So wherever your difficulty is, it's still making you think a little bit more. So I enjoy that too. But
yeah, at the end of the day, I enjoy the content itself. I'm not talking about dire difficulty. That doesn't apply, I feel like, for 98% of the player base, if not more. It's just because it's just unrealistic, maybe. But yeah, like Fearless difficulty, really fun. I am excited for the next lineup of the 3 bosses. I'll have a lot of fun because at the end of the day, I like the combat in Genshin Impact. I like having to think about the teams I go in, and I do like maybe failing a couple of times and trying out a different team comp. That's just a fun experience to have to actually think about what I'm doing. Okay, this didn't work. Let me try this. Can I use this character in this weird, just different way? It's not conventional for them or whatever. That's just fun. I miss doing that honestly when I was a newer player and had to do that with Abyss, like during Sumeru and stuff and Hyper Bloom. Good memories, you know. So at the end of the day, I'm there for the content, and once again, thankfully, they're not putting Primogems behind. They're not even putting Primogems behind Fearless or the difficulty under that, if I remember correctly. I think it's really just the hard difficulty and maybe the one of them. I don't know. I forget. Point is, Primogems are still relatively easily obtainable. So that's the good part. If they were putting Primogems or something more powerful for actual account progression behind these harder difficulties, that's a whole nother problem. I'm not saying it's not already a problem with the skins. That is a problem, because that's ridiculous, but it could be worse, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And you know me, I'm too optimistic for my own good. So, okay, so you've got advancing. So it's the hard, it's the one after. Oh, but
Yeah,
okay, so you do get
you
the
don't get
Dust of Enlightenment though.
Yeah, so all you're getting are the extra
That's
flowers,
still
which is
worth
still
it.
good. Like, don't get me wrong, it's still good, but yeah, it's not anything. You're still getting, you know, still getting a flower, which is pretty good. And you
Yeah.
get 3 at the end of the day. At the very least, you can always get 1. You know what I mean? You can always get 1 Dust of Enlightenment no matter what, as long as you're using up your resin in the first 10 days.
Still not
And
gonna
it
feel
doesn't
good
matter what
for-
difficulty that is. You know, you guys can.
Yeah,
Like,
it
you
just
can do
still won't feel good for at least newer players or players who haven't been had the time for like
Right.
that menacing and fearless. To not get that Dust of Enlightenment's not gonna feel good, no matter where you're at in the game.
Right.
So there's some problems there. They need to change that. And you've probably heard other creators already talked about it. Me specifically, I actually watched Bran talk about it, which that was really interesting to watch. So I don't know. It's a problem, and we're here to talk about it. And ultimately, we're just 2 Genshin players in the U.S., and because we're in the U.S., China will never hear us, so it doesn't matter what we think.
And now jumping into our next section, we're going to be talking about the gacha revenue, which is probably, honestly, we're going to take a little bit more of a quicker probably time period looking at this one. I'm going to kind of go through the banners a little bit. I kind of have everything pulled up right now. So I'll kind of like I kind of have everything pulled up on my end. Maybe not exactly what you guys see, but on what you guys are going to be able to see right now, at least the very least, is at the very top, we have Genshin Impact. Somehow, some way, by a straight luck of the draw, I don't even know how.
Oh, they
we
forced us to
beat
pull the characters so we could actually beat Stygian.
Lads actually got beat by Genshin. We don't even know how.
That is crazy. That is crazy.
So I think that's gonna be interesting, you know. But let's maybe see why. So in this past, obviously during the June time period when the banners were out, it was kind of the first few days of Kineshin Raiden's banner was at the end of May, and honestly, Kineshin Raiden most likely had no real pull in terms of maybe actual pulling for, I guess, that time period. You know what I mean? So
at best moderate is my thought.
It has to be so low, it's almost inconceivable in my personal opinion. But either way, we know for sure the big reason that people were pulling was Skirk and Shenhe, who came out later. Now, most likely, once again, the biggest pull here is going to be Skirk. I mean, you have a character that's getting right up there next to, if you have on the best teams, you're looking at the second best DPS in the game right now. You're looking at an extremely strong character. We can see why now Genshin Impact is at 65 million on, I think, sales right now. So it makes the most sense for June. Brand new character. At this point in time, people are probably also pulling the Skirk, maybe if they missed her, whether that be for a Wriothesley or whether be it for another character, but most likely, obviously, for Skirk as well. So, you know, a double banner here for a double pull for a lot of people could definitely be the way that a lot of people are looking at it. So that's kind of how Genshin looked in the past week or the past month, and then kind of looking into what next month's going to look like. Most of July is going to be Malwika and Emily. And then we'll have 5.8, which is most likely going to have Anefa on it. So it'll have like 1 or 2 days of Anefa. But I honestly think that first Malwika rerun with Emily. Now, personally for me, we'll obviously talk about this in the pull and not to pull when we bring it up. For me, Emily is how how do I say this, is almost a red herring, right? You just went through the Imaginarium Theatre, and as you saw, I had to use, I mean, my Malwika team and my Skirk team were at 72 seconds on that Fearless difficulty, but then you saw the 112-second difference, so a solid 40-second difference, purely because I didn't have Emily. So in my personal opinion, as much as I would love to grab Emily right now, I think she's a red herring for a lot of people, but once again, that is a later thing. So I think the biggest thing, though, I wouldn't be surprised if Emily actually pulls some pretty good sales from it, but obviously Malwika's rerun is going to be a pretty good thing for Genshin. I see similar sales, maybe a little bit lower in terms of what the revenue is going to look like in July, but that's kind of my past, middle, and future projection for Genshin at least.
Yeah, I would agree. It's heavily riding on Malwika, which is going to no doubt be really good first rerun. So people that weren't playing the game yet, people that didn't pick her up in the first banner, people that did pick her up on the first banner and now are going after the C1 to C2. There's every reason to still consider Malwika when you have the best character in the game. Even if you already have her, you may be able to be like, well, I guess I wasn't thinking about C1, C2. Maybe I will. So it's going to heavily carry all of July. And who knows, maybe Anefa will have a fairly decent burst on the first day or first 2 days. If that's technically in July, there may be a little tiny influx right there at the end. So definitely riding on Malwika.
Yeah,
but what do we see for the next one? What is that, Wuwa?
So Wuwa actually is now above both Zenless and Star Rail. So Wuwa kind of came in.
Good.
Now we said that they would jump up. I think we underestimated them surprisingly. I think we were kind of talking about how they were going to be kind of strong this month. I don't think we were expecting this strong though, to be honest with you. But I think that's mainly due to at the beginning of July. Their banner specifically ended with the anniversary convene with Junsi, Chengli, Carlotta, Rochia, and Brent. And then the new character was also released as well, that new Arrow unit. And then we had Cartethia jumping out with the rest of June, and she's going to end in the next few hours, actually in the next hour for us on our end. She's ending in July. So, that's going to be absolutely insane. You're doing basically Cartethia looked like she pretty much carried this specific banner.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I think next month Lupa's coming up. I know a lot of people are looking at Lupa pretty heavily too. The thing is there's been a lot of strong fusion characters in the past, but I know people are going to be looking at Lupa and some interesting ideas for her. So I'll be interested to see kind of what next month looks like. I don't think it's going to have as good sales, depending on who the character after Lupa is. I think is going to be the biggest determining factor. But I do think Cartethia definitely, she kind of hard carried July, I'm not going to lie, which hard carrying July by herself against other gachas and still hitting almost 40 mil is kind of insane in my personal opinion.
Yeah, not playing the game and haven't been playing the game for a while, still heard a lot about Cartethia just from third-party sources, media, people in Discord, just whatever. So there was a lot of talk around Cartethia, so I guess I'm not surprised. Also, right. I know that I guess that Arrow unit you were referring to was Siachona, whatever.
Yeah.
Did she kind of have some hype? I feel like after the anniversary, she kind of had some hype, but her banner ended in the beginning of June, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so it really wasn't 10 days much there. Okay, yeah. Most of her
so it was a solid third of the month, but at the same time, that last week, some people are throwing pulls in, but most of the people who are kind of spending are usually probably waiting
definitely
for the next
Cartethia. And hey, nearly 40 mil, right? I'm not seeing that wrong. Like that's really good for Withering Waves. That might be an all-time high for them, maybe someone can
I'm not sure if it's an all-time, but it's definitely a pretty good high, that's for sure.
That is really good for Wuwa, so yeah, props to them.
I think you were actually kind of close. We can either find the footage or you guys can go find it yourself of what we said last gacha revenue, but I think you were pretty on par with what that looked like.
I don't remember what I was guessing at, so
yeah, neither do I think you were at least in a very good idea. You definitely were talking up how strong I think Wuwa was going to look like. Now, also, or it was either that or Zenless. And speaking of Zenless, Zenless is right behind it. Really they jumped. Talk about a comeback.
Yeah, we did talk about how this would happen. I'm not surprised.
Yeah. So coming up to 28 mil, and this might actually be that maybe I was wrong there, but you have an Astro Yao rerun and you have Yixuan. Yixuan's supposed to be lore-wise supposed to be as strong as Miyabi. So just goes to show why, that's definitely going to show a lot of promise there. Now, her
Yeah.
banner only went from 606 to 625. So you had only, kind of that time period. But at the same time, I mean, that's a lot of sales. I mean, your entire banner was in that month. So that's still kind of cool. And never mind, outside of just her, a character she pairs extremely well with comes right after, which is Jufufu. So it's kind of the same thing with the Skirk and Shenhe. It's almost like they were on the same banner, borderline, right? And never mind, Asriel is always a good solid character. Now, maybe not perfect for Yixuan because of the attack buffs and all that stuff. It's getting into some technicalities. But overall, I think that, like...
Overall, I mean, she's literally the best support character at this current time in the game. So, like, there's always a pull value for her. So.
Yeah, Jufufu just has a really solid, it was a very, very solid pull. Never mind pairing her with Yixuan. Just absolutely insane, kind of pairing these two together. And the banner, I mean, the money literally kind of you can track the money here. I mean, to be honest with you,
the numbers speak for themselves, you know? So I think, and hey, maybe Caesar had a little bit in there. We have a personal friend that was going for the M6 on Caesar, happened to get it, so yay. Got really lucky on the M4, so that was awesome. I think, what do we see looking ahead for Zenless? Is it going to be better, worse? What do you think? Like, what are the next characters we're looking at?
In my personal opinion, what I see in the future, now I don't know too much about who's going to come up after this, so I wouldn't be too sure on that one. I mean, technically, I know we have characters like Yuzua and Alice, but I don't think that...
Oh, that's right.
I think a lot of people are looking at those types of characters. I don't think we're going to see the amount of money put into Yixuan and Jufufu.
I definitely don't think so.
Once again, it's kind of like a Miyabi banner. You're not going to see the same amount of strength there. You know what I mean? There's not going to be there as much. But I do think it's going to be a good month. I just don't... It's definitely not going to be a 10 mil month like last month was. But I don't think it's going to be quite almost 40 mil like this one was. For that one at least. But the last game we have is Star Rail. Now, Star Rail is a little bit interesting.
You don't say. I say that. What is that, 18? Is that 18 mil?
Yes, and they took a fall from grace a little bit. I think,
if I'm being honest, it's probably people just saving, maybe, or recovering.
I would have to agree. So June has 10 days at the end of a Herda and Hysilens banner. At that point, most people are pulling for. Same thing with, I think we were talking about Wu or something like that. So, at that point, it's most likely not that banner. All that June really was 3 almost full weeks, with literally 1 day off, of Aglaya and Cypher. So an Aglaya rerun and then Cypher.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense,
that just
actually.
Goes to show that people who wanted Aglaya most likely already had her, and Cypher's
a fun character. It's like
Cypher's
it's like Topaz all over again.
Yeah. Now, once again, don't get me wrong. Almost 20 million is still good for a gacha game, But obviously, falling from I think number 1 or top few or number 3 actually. Sorry, I can look at the number right there. Top 3 going down from top 3 down to less than half is a little bit of a yikes. But once again, it can be tracked. Same with the other games. It can be tracked. Like you said, though, I think the best way to put it was a lot of people are saving. You have the Fate banners that are releasing next, and at the same time, you have Finon releasing, which a lot of people are looking forward to. Never mind a character that was in like Honkai's kind of like, Hoyoverse idea already in the past.
Yeah.
Now being put into a real character, and you now have also the Fate being thrown in here with Archer and
Saber,
there we go. Yeah, wow, just only a Fate fan over here. As you can tell, it's late at night. But that's like kind of the idea here, is that like at the end of the day, you still have like, I think next month's gonna absolutely crush it. I would not be surprised if they crush 44. I think people are gonna go absolutely insane for Finon, but also I think people already have gone insane for Finon because it's already out. But I think the Fate banners, which we'll talk about actually soon in a minute, which we're done with the Gacha revenue, I think this is going to go absolutely insane. I think there's a lot of people out there that, this is the first of the Hoyoverse games now Hoyoverse that we cover with Zenless, Withering Waves, Zenless and Honkai Star Rail and Genshin. Of these 3 games, having a real first, like anime kind of collab. Collabs are almost seen with like maybe really low, I wouldn't say really low budget, but you know what I mean, like almost those gacha games that no one talks about but you only see ads for, and they're
Yeah, you don't
not,
know what the game is. You just know, oh, this game did a
they're doing a
collab with Demon
collab with
Slayer. I don't know what the game
Persona
is,
or
but it
something,
was
and it's
Demon
like,
Slayer.
yeah, exactly,
Or
it had
something like
Demon
that.
Slayer on it, and it's a 5-second ad that you just hit the skip button. But I think like
Yeah.
that's what you would normally expect, and maybe why these other higher gacha games don't do it is maybe because they don't want to look like that. Star Rail, because of the world that they kind of do, it's like a universe of jumping from world to world. It actually almost works with Star Rail's idea, so it's actually kind of cool how they've kind of integrated it and smart. We'll see
Yeah.
exactly how they integrate Fate into it more and story wise. I'm
That's gonna be
interested.
so exciting because I think a lot
Yeah.
that is a lot of players. Like you were saying, I think that is a lot of players right now. How is this gonna work? I think there's just a lot of curiosity that's been brewing, and so
Right.
it's gonna be awesome. So like you said, I think it's a lot of people saving. Also, it's just the month of June was one of those months for Star Rail's case where you have the banner switching pretty much in the middle of the month, which means that first 10 days there's not really a lot of sales no matter how good the banner is, because most of the sales of that banner is in the previous month. And then the rest of the month, the second half of June, there's only enough time for that one banner. It's not like there's still some time by the end of the month for the new banner for a couple of days or something. So June was just bound to have, and I think maybe we talked about that as far as predictions go in the last gacha revenue talk. So I guess we kind of sort of expected this. And after you mentioned the characters involved, I'm like, okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. Aglaia and Cypher, I mean, once again, I already said it. Cypher's a fun character. If you have Facial, it's kind of worth it. It's not a required pull even at that point. She's just a fun character. And Aglaia, I think most people already have. It would have to be going for the E1 or E2, something like that. But they probably, even then, if people were hardcore on their Aglaias and still had an E0, they probably weren't looking at E1. They were probably looking at Sunday if they didn't have Sunday. That would be a reason to skip.
Yeah. There's too many. I think once again, I don't think Cypher had enough pull weight in what the game was looking for quite yet. There's a lot of like background ideas and what that's going to look like really for those games. But yeah, that's really all that the gacha revenue kind of had. You know, Genshin had its fall from grace, you know, a few months ago, and then obviously slowly crawled its way back up and, you know, shot back up also at one point. You know, Zenless and, you know, Withering Waves, you know, Zenless kind of came back. We kind of figured that everybody was going to be waiting for 2.0 to drop, and don't worry, they definitely did. And then obviously Star Rail's waiting for its come up. So, you know, there's always up and downs with the different gachas, but obviously, you know, over time kind of changes, different things are going on. But yeah, that's really what the gacha revenue at least look like for this month. So let us know what your guys' thoughts are on this segment as well. Let us know down in the comments. Now, I know you can't see our faces right now, but I just wanted to because it's also kind of in the way a little bit, so I kind of didn't want our faces to be in the way. But down here in the bottom right, I know last time we talked about this in the GachaCast, we were wondering about how the Fate banners were kind of talked about a little bit more, and thankfully, literally, a little bit annoyingly, the day after we put out the video, they kind of changed the wording so that you can do pulls before the Fate banners drop, and you will still have those counted towards your free Archer light count. I know we talked about the free Archer light cone here, and it shows you your progress on the actual banner itself in the bottom right here corner. I've done 124 pulls. That's what I did to get my Finon and his light cone. And so here you have, it'll show you as well. If you click on it, you guys can get, you can claimable after 8 days and 15 hours. Your total warp count is 124 out of 200. You can do more after as well. But that's just to let you guys know as soon as it hits that number, then you guys are totally set and fine. But I did want that to at least be thrown at the beginning of this segment so you guys can know that and obviously see it as well. And now jumping into our next segment, we're going to be looking at some new characters for Star Rail as well. So some newly dropped characters with some newly dropped kits we're going to be getting in the next few weeks after all this Finon and some of the Fate stuff is going to be kind of going through as well. Our next two characters we have are Hysilens and Cerydra. Now, I might be butchering those names, but let's go through at least Hysilens' kit first. She's going to be a physical Nihility unit for you guys, and she is going to actually look pretty good. I kind of already taken a look through her kit. Pretty happy and excited. So let's go ahead and dive right into what her actual kit looks like. So basic attack, really nothing special here at all. It's just 100% of her attack. It's designated to one enemy. That's it. Looking at her skill though, it states that it's going to have some AoE, which is really, really good for some DOT stuff. Oh, I didn't mention, she's going to be a DOT unit. Just going to say, Also
Oh,
awesome.
yeah.
Anyways, back down to this as well. It states that she has a 100% base chance to increase damage taken by all enemies by 20%, lasting for 3
Where's
turns.
my wallet?
You already have a damage debuff on Nihility unit, and as Rift's already getting his wallet ready, mine's already out. Also, it states that while dealing physical damage at the same time, equal to 140% of Hysilens attack to all enemies. Also, pretty insane.
Wow.
Let's keep going through the rest of her kit because it does get better somehow. Looking at the ultimate, another AoE hit, it states that it will deploy a zone that reduces the enemy's attack by 15% and the defense of the enemy by 25%. Don't worry, the ultimate keeps going. And deals physical damage equal to 300% of Hysilens attack to all enemies. Whenever an enemy target within the zone takes damage from DOT, it will deal physical DOT equal to 80% of Hysilens attack to them, and this damage cannot be repeatedly triggered with triggering this effect, and it can be triggered up to 8 times at the start of each turn or within one action of an ally target. So if for some odd reason you do 8 DOTs in a row, it's going to trigger that DOT over and over again. So if it triggers multiple times, it'll throw this extra physical DOT hit out. Now, also that amount of times, however it was. Then it also states that the zone will last for 3 turns, which it already stated so as well. It will decrease 1 at the start of each turn of Hysilens' turn. So if characters are getting thrown in front of her, you're not having them -1. She'll probably have a little counter on her character as well, so you can see that while she's actually being played. And then it says also the zone will be dispelled if Hysilens gets knocked down. Pretty normal as a character unit here. Now we're going to be talking about her talent pretty quickly. It states that when using a base attack, a skill, or an ultimate, there's a 100% base chance to inflict any type of the DOT, so wind shear, bleed, burn, shock on the enemy target, prioritizing to inflict different states, basically new ones that aren't on the enemy. So if you already have wind shear, bleed, and burn, it's going to prioritize shock. If you already have wind shear, it's going to prioritize bleed, burn, or shock. It's basically just going to flip a 3-sided coin. I don't know. So that's kind of the idea here as well. It also states that under the wind shear, burn, shock state, at the start of each turn, the enemy takes wind damage, fire damage, or wind DOT, fire DOT, and lightning DOT equal to 25% of Hysilens' attack for 2 turns. Under the bleed state, on the other hand, at the start of each turn, the enemy's target takes physical DOT equal to 20% of their max HP and up to 25% of Hysilens' attack, lasting for 2 turns. So basically, it's saying like basically a fifth of their HP is going to be knocked off, or if it goes basically, as long as it doesn't go over the 25%, kind of also the threshold of some extra things as well of Hysilens' attack. So once again, that's just also another kind of thing of 2 turns. She has some help that's going to increase her damage, the more effect hit rate she has. She has some extra usability based on like when other allies perform attacks, she has another base chance to to throw an enemy target on wind shear, bleed, burn, and shock for 2 turns. This character is, at first she's a physical character, so you're not expecting her to do really, you're only expecting her to do bleed, and now she's just throwing out everything that can kind of come out of the water here. So Rift, I know your mouth's watering and mine is too, so what are we thinking about this character? Because I'm already ready to pull.
Okay, well, I can speak for some other people here as well, maybe. But as a Kafka, Black Swan, Jiao Cho kind of like DOT main, like DOT, to put in perspective, was my first actual team, going all the way back to just 1.x. I pulled Zila, so technically I guess that was my first team, but not like premium team. After I pulled Zila, my next character was Kafka. I didn't pull Silver Wolf, even though she was the Kazuha or the Shalonen at the time, right? Jing Yuan, I just also didn't pull. I pulled Kafka, and I was like, I wanna build a team around Kafka over time. Eventually, we get to Penacony, pull Black Swan because, oh my goodness, she's literally so good with Kafka, and oh my goodness, the synergy. So I pulled Black Swan. I'm kind of getting a little bit of that again here, though. Like, Hysilens is definitely geared toward helping a DOT team. So this looks really interesting, and it's very hopeful too, because DOT has always been, especially just in the past year, has always been very, very mid, if we're being honest. Just kind of bad in comparison to what's actually meta. DOT just doesn't get the job done in very high-end content, unless it's okay. Divergent Universe doesn't count. I know you're probably thinking about that. That's different. We're talking about like, floor 12 MOC or APOC. DOT is really not an option you're even thinking about anymore. You're using all this other different stuff. My point is, if Hysilens is a character that's specifically designed for, or at least DOT's in mind, at top of mind, with this character, that gives me really good hope for DOT in general, because that tells me that they want DOT to go somewhere or bring it back in a sense. We also have Kafka being buffed,
I
so
was
there's
just
that
gonna
to keep in
bring
mind
that
as
up
well.
with the Kafka buff.
I
Yeah.
am really hopeful for just DOT in general. So Hysilens can't be a bad character, right? Hopefully she's not. Hopefully the multipliers, the actual in-practice damage from her, the bleed especially, DOT and all of that, is really good. I'm going to be having a lot of fun with it. Hopefully I get Hysilens. I'm definitely going to be doing a Kafka Black Swan, Hysilens, whatever team. It's going to be just an absolute blast. Thankfully for stat bonuses with her traces, you're getting attack percent, speed, and effect hit rate in there a little bit to help that out. She'll probably end up being an effect hit rate body, speed boots, attack orb, and either energy regen rope or just an attack ropes, maybe something like that. Just thinking, I don't theory
Yeah.
craft, but that's
I mean,
probably what she's going to be.
if I could just jump in, yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
go
you
ahead.
kind of hit the nail on the head. I mean, speed boots. People were talking about an attack. I mean, sorry, a physical damage boost orb, which I found kind of interesting considering the damage
Considering
she's
she
gonna be
does like
doing.
multiple DOTs though, like
I
that would only help
figure
bleed, I would
attack
imagine.
right, and that's why I'm like, I feel like attack
Kind
would
of
help
like
more, but
Chaska, where Chaska in
maybe over
Genshin Impact
time
is doing
it'll
multiple
change.
elemental instances of damage. You
Yeah.
don't do animo damage on Chaska because, well, that's not how she works.
Right.
So
So like
maybe
maybe
it's
over
similar to
time
that.
it'll change, or maybe they're just kind
We'll
of
just have to
waiting.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then also, yeah, you once again nail on the head there, because her ultimate's almost as important as her consistent DOD. Because keep in mind, the skill is very nice. Don't get me wrong. The extra damage increase by making you do more damage to enemies, very good, and obviously the damage from the skill is very, very nice. But the ultimate is a very big part of her kit. It's constant physical DOT, but it's also a defense shred and the enemy's attack shred as well. And you're already doing damage to all enemies. It's just going to be an absolutely
And the
insane thing.
skill is increasing damage taken. It's ridiculous. She's almost like, in a weird sense, hopefully this makes sense. She's almost like the Harmony character for the DOT team, even though they're all
No,
Nihility.
yeah,
But you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, no, that
she's
was
the
a very good
hyper
thought, yeah.
kind of support character for that team. Another thing that comes to my mind is right now, if you do DOT teams, you either use, obviously Kafka Black Swan remain the same. Your third slot's usually either, you can do Robin, you can do Ron Mei, you can do Jiao Cho since he's applying fire if you're not using Gonaifen for the fire DOT, and then your sustain after that. You could go sustainless and use all three, Kafka, Black Swan, Jiao Cho, and then use Ron Mei, go sustainless. There's that option. I think with this character, Hysilens, though, is gonna free up Jiao Cho to maybe we'll see future MOC runs where Akron's in the first half, let's just say, and she can still have her Jiao Cho and Silver Roll for whatever you're doing there. And your DOT team doesn't suffer a loss. They actually get a buff because now you're replacing Jiao Cho with Hysilens. You're going to obviously want Kafka, Black Swan, Hysilens, because that's going to be best in slot DOT. And then that fourth character is either your sustain, like Lingsha, Venturine, whatever the heck you want to use there for your sustain. Huohuo probably being one of the better ones just because of the energy regen for the ultimates. That's huge on those characters. And the attack buff, which is literally all DOT damage cares about. You don't need to worry about crit. So Huohuo's attack buff is just really good, plus being a sustain. Anyways, you guys get the picture. That team's just going to be so good, so fun. And for people who already have Huohuo for reasons like Aglaya, I don't know, maybe even Hypercarrier Naxa, Finon, I know likes Huohuo a lot. You know, it's interesting, I'm kind of getting on a rabbit trail. Huohuo's actually seemed to get kind of a, not resurgence, but almost an insurgence. She's almost better now than she ever really was. You know what I mean? Would you agree with that? Speaking of Huohuo?
With Huohuo, I mean, to an extent, yeah, probably. I mean, there's been more units that are more energy focused and more
She has more
energy
teams
dependent.
now.
Like you were talking about with Aglaya is a big one. I mean, Argenti kind of came out as well. I think it started with Argenti, but it still wasn't like a necessity. But then it came to a character like Aglaya where it was like, if you don't have Sunday, first and foremost, you really need Sunday. But
Yeah.
she could take the brunt of that force, and never mind throwing her in the team, made it even better. DOT has always been extremely dependent on a character like Huohuo, not to the point where it's been like a you have to or else you will lose, but to the point where it makes a very visible difference. Now throwing her in this team, another character that's based on such a heavy amount on an ultimate, I mean, you have Kafka, Black Swan, and now this character which does a defense shred and everything. You kind of want that out there now, so it's borderline necessary. I think I would have to say, yeah, probably.
It's going to be so good.
She was always good, but yeah. I mean, besides that, Cerydra, though, we can keep talking about Cerydra all day long. I mean, Hysilens all day long. I'm already getting to the next character, which is Cerydra. So, Rift, kind of bring us down
Yeah,
the
yeah.
lane with her.
I could keep going on and on about Hysilens, obviously as a DOT main, if you will. Maybe some of you resonate, as I already stated. But moving on from Hysilens, let's look at another just busted character. I guess that's the Amphorius arc. Every character is just absolutely insane. But we're gonna have a new Wind Harmony character, other than Bronya now. So Cerydra, number one, she looks really good. Really like the splash art. I know we can't show that, but if you guys have seen it, I like the art a lot. So looking at her kit and skills and whatnot, her basic attack is just wind damage equal to 100% of her attack to one enemy unit. Looking at her skill, though, she's going to grant what's called military merit to one designated ally character and give Cerydra herself 1 point of charge. And she has a max charge of 8 points. When the charge reaches 6, though, military merit upgrades to nobility state and dispels the unit she's buffed a crowd control debuff. So if they're controlled by, whatever, like the bug can put you in a state, any of those states where your character can't do something, she gives them, she dispels that. It's basically a cleanse. Characters with this nobility state from Cerydra that's been upgraded from the first state called military merit, they will gain 72% crit damage boost. Oh my goodness, that's a lot. 72% crit damage boost for skill damage specifically, and trigger a coup de main when using their skill on enemies. After coup de main ends, consume 6 points of charge to revert nobility back to military merit. So it does seem very interesting. I mean, it's a lot of crit damage again. That's crazy. But that's just the skill. So looking at the ultimate, she's going to gain 2 charge right off the bat when you use the ultimate. You're also going to deal wind damage equal to 240% of her attack to all enemies. If there are no characters with military merit on the field, you will prioritize granting military merit to the character in position 1 in the team lineup. So I've been seeing this a lot actually with even third-party buffs. Hey, your character in position 1 is going to have XYZ if you do ABC, right? So once again, we see this character kind of, if you put your DPS in slot 1, so let's just say it's Finon, then you're going to give military merit from the skill to Finon. And the nice part about that is it's basically like applying the skill without using a skill point is kind of what I'm seeing here, which seems really interesting, as well as getting the charge, of course. So I feel like, because that's all with the ultimate, I feel like the biggest thing, it's probably not going to be the damage considering she's a harmony unit. The biggest thing here is you're getting 2 charge and you're actually giving that state from the skill to your DPS without using that skill point. I think that's the biggest takeaway. But looking at her talent, states that characters with military merit gain increased attack equal to 24% of Cerydra's attack. When the character uses basic attack or skill, Cerydra also gains 1 charge. Charge cannot be gained while coup de main is in effect. Then that goes back to the skill we talked about. Military merit only takes effect on the most recently affected target. And when the target changes, Cerydra's charge is instantly reset to 0. So that is something to keep in mind. So obviously that just makes me once again think that teams that have multiple DPSs, so you have a main DPS and a sub DPS, obviously you don't want to switch up where the buff's going because it's going to affect Cerydra's charge, and that's not a positive impact. It's going to be a negative impact. So she seems just right off the bat like a hyper carry type of support. Someone like Sunday, someone like Sparkle, and less like Treeby or Robin. She's a hyper buffer, is the point. But Vixen, what are some of your thoughts? What do you have to say about Cerydra?
I mean, Cerydra is basically, it's a Finon, Hypercarry, and Naxa. I mean, those are the 2 units that are going to pop up in everyone's brain.
Those are the top 2?
Yeah, those are the top 2 that you're going to kind of go into. I mean, you could technically, I know people are going to try to bring in the Herda in there as well at some point. I know people were talking about that at some point. But those are kind of, at least from what I've been able to see and tell from what a lot of people have been able to put out, that is what they have been running, and that makes the most sense considering those are the characters that are going to be doing the most, especially a character like Anaxa that is literally doing so many skills it's not even funny. You're increasing that damage, and that's where a lot of his damage already comes from. And the ultimate, don't get me wrong, is very good damage, but now you're able to make another part of his kit do a lot of damage just as bring another support in, so you can still run Sunday and run her at the same time. That's just going to make that team absolutely insane. And kind of a cool thing with her kit, actually, when you were talking about her military merit turning into nobility. Her military merit looks like a little pawn, like a chess piece, and then I believe it switches to a king, or a queen, or a king, or maybe a knight. I'm not. Which another higher chess piece. I think it's a king.
better chess piece.
I think it's a king, and that's when it's nobility, and that's when it kind of changes, and which would make sense if you understand chess at all. So that, once again, is kind of cool. I think, cool idea. I think is very, very cool for her. I'm wondering what changes are going to look like and how this character is going to change a little bit more over time. She looks a little specific, so that's my only initial fear with her, is that she is very just kind of narrow in aspect. And as much as I love Sunday and I think he's a very good character, he's a very similar unit. Once again, a lot of these hyper carry units are very similar. That's why you see someone like Robin have such longevity. Never mind, she's just absolutely insane. She has kind of a ability to buff kind of a lot of characters and kind of pull everyone forward, do all of these things to all characters, and it allows a little bit more strength with a damage boost as well with her skill. I think there's just a little bit more something like that allows a little bit more strength. Same thing technically with a character like Lingsha, even though she's a kind of she pretends to be a healer when she's really just a damage dealer and a support technically at the same time.
Like she's like, yes, I do multiple hundred thousands of break damage, and it's like,
exactly.
Wait,
like,
that's fire.
This character might not do a crazy amount of damage, and honestly, I mean, she gives herself 100% crit rate, so she just might.
And she's based on attack too, like for
so she's
her talent.
She's
you want a
always
lot
gonna
of
be
attack.
critting. You're not gonna be throwing any crit damage necessarily on her.
Yeah, no.
I mean, probably, maybe, but it's probably mainly just attack and speed, just to make sure that you're always.
Although her
pumping
bonus
skill
ability
in,
3, when Cerydra's attack is greater than 2,000, for every 100 attack exceeded, increases the unit's crit damage by 18% up to maximum 360. She
another
literally
reason why you
gives
just wanna
herself
go full attack.
her own crit ratio. You don't have to have any crit on her, any of her relics, the planners. You just build a lot of attack.
Which is why it's like
you will have 100% crit rate and nearly, like, basically 300% crit damage. That is crazy. Just artificial crit. That's crazy. Wow.
You don't have literally anything to do about it. It's just like, okay, so she's just insane. Okay, cool. Now, once again, I think on paper it looks very good. From what I've seen, though, it looks very specific. I haven't seen a lot of people run a lot of different teams. Now, once again, over time, that's probably going to change, and as well with maybe how the kit is going to change a little bit, we'll see maybe a difference there, and we will talk before the character releases, obviously, a few more times about her, but specifically what we're seeing here, I'm just a little, I haven't seen a lot of multiple different
I am
teams.
curious about Aglaya.
Like that,
I know you have Aglaya, and I'm sure you've probably thought in the back of your head too. I would be curious about Aglaya just because she is giving and she's increasing speed on teammates with military merit by 20 for 3 turns. That's from her bonus ability 1.
As helpful,
I don't know how good that is for Aglaya. I know she's already getting so much speed that may not be a lot because it's like diminishing returns or something like that. Is that
who do you
what
take
you're about
out
to
as
say?
the question? Well, who do you take out as the question?
That and that's the other thing. Like,
you
okay,
have
well,
Sunday.
I'd rather have Sunday. The energy regen.
You physically can't take out Sunday because of his obviously his skill, which not only helps crit rate on this other stuff, that's great, that's fantastic, and obviously the crit damage as well. So he's already being a crit buffer, but at the same time he's helping energy, yes, and he's also helping damage for the unit and the summon at the same time. So you like physically can't run Sunday out of that character. Right. Your sustain is Huohuo, so you can't run that out of there, and you have to have a sustain in that team specifically also because you don't need Garment Maker to die. At that point, then you have your 3rd slot or your extra buffer at this point. Who do you take out? Do you actually drop Robin for Cerydra? In my personal opinion, I don't think so right now. Because keep in mind as well, to actually increase the points of charge, it says when characters use base attack or skill. Now, once again, you're still using a skill and a base attack a lot with Aglaya here. So, does that... So you're, so that's something you're like, okay,
it's probably just one of those things where
I can get a lot of stuff out, so that should be pretty good. Once again, it's just going to be something that I think is going to take time with. I think Aglaya is a good one, but is it worth it to exchange that for Robin's pull up plus her damage buff plus kind of what she kind of brings to the team? I think it's going to be that's the only character you can exchange. You know what I mean at that point. So. And I'm not sure too many people are going to be okay with dropping a Robin.
Yeah.
That's true. If you don't have
I could
Robin
probably agree with that. It's just like another option. Maybe Robin's in the other team.
Character. Yeah. if
I
you're
do want
grabbing,
to like
a character like Finon and you already have Aglaya, then maybe,
exactly.
Cerydra is the perfect kind of combo character for you.
Yeah, yeah. Or if you don't have Sunday, like it's just kind of like. But yeah, if you already have like the best in slot team, she's probably not gonna replace
She's
someone.
not
Like Aglaya still
necessary.
has her best team. Like it doesn't really change with Cerydra.
Yeah, we'll see.
And
Maybe
we'll see
maybe it
in
will.
practice.
Maybe,
Maybe, yeah. Maybe with like certain because Starro has like very niche ways to do endgame content. Like use this. If you do this, then this happens, and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
well, all right.
You're getting a
But
lot
I
of
don't know.
charges up. You're helping her being a good character. I mean, like and the speed increases. It shows a lot of
It
good
just
stuff
makes
that
me
could
curious,
help.
I
We'll just have to
guess.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a good
So
thought. Yeah.
one thing I want to go over again though was that coup
Yeah.
de main. I feel like for people watching, especially that have never heard anything about Cerydra yet, and we also can't like show a bunch of stuff. But that coup de main coming from the skill again, let me go back to it. It says that characters with nobility, remember that upgraded state from military merit, they gain 72% crit damage boost for skill damage specifically, and trigger a coup de main when using their skill on enemies. What is this coup de main, right? And then it also says after coup de main ends, you will consume 6 points of charge to revert the nobility back to military merit. But coup de main, basically, it's gonna what coup de main does is it's gonna copy and immediately use the ability about to be used, and then use that original ability. And obviously, coup de main can't trigger itself over and over. It's not like this endless loop. So basically, when you use your skill after characters with nobility go to use their skill, they trigger the coup de main, so their skill gets used twice essentially, which can be really good. I mean, once again, those skill damage-based characters, Anaxa already has a follow-up type of thing where when you use his, you can do it with his basic attack too, but he goes twice. And
now you
oh
just
my goodness, hyper carry Anaxa is just gonna absolutely destroy.
Now my question is, do you
his skill
double,
does about the same or more than his?
Now I'd have to see more about him because I've looked at a few, but I haven't actually seen. If you get coup de main, does that recharge the initial skill? And so then do you double follow-up attack, or does the follow-up attack have too much of a
It's an interesting thought. I was literally just thinking about it. And
so, well, that'll be maybe more, but...
Maybe. But my thought is that, yes, he will do it. Because when he does that, he can, and it works with his basics too, when you hit with your basic or skill with an Axa, an enemy that has 4 or more weaknesses, I think it's 5 or more. If they have 5 or more weaknesses, the point is he will do another kind of it's not follow-up damage, it's just another attack that he's following up with to do another hit, and it's really, really good. It's just about as good as the actual original hit you're doing. If coup de main makes him use the original ability again, I would think that because he's using his skill again kind of a thing, that it has to trigger that passive, because that passive is in his kit. He would have to do it. But who knows? In practice, it may not happen because that's just how it's, because it wasn't like you actually used his skill or used his skill point. Maybe the game doesn't register it the same. I would like to think he does, and it would be actually insane if he did, and that would make so much more sense why he's brought up for this.
I mean, going back to specifically his talent, it states that while he's on the field, they have to have at least 5 different types of weaknesses.
Okay.
And he doesn't increase a certain amount of damage with the qualitative disclosure state. In addition, after using a basic or skill on that character, on that enemy that has 5 weaknesses on them, at least, it unleashes an additional instance of the skill on the targets.
It just unleashes the skill again. So
technically, if you're getting to use your skill again through his actual skill, then yes, it could technically trigger his talent again. It at least looks like. Now, once again, this is another reason why going back to exactly the coup de main also got me to thinking about, once again, your nobility, which is boosting just skill damage, which
that's
is
probably why people talked about the Herda. I know you brought that up briefly earlier.
And not why they talked about Aglaya. So
yeah, because Aglaya's all basic attack damage.
Right. So you'd be increasing her speed and you'd be helping her in certain instances, but not fully, and that's probably why there's too many holes in Cerydra to really help out Aglaya here. But I mean, overall, looking at these two characters, though, I'm still actually more interested. I think I was like before, when I had originally looked at these characters, I was a little bit more hesitant on specifically Cerydra. I really just thought she was going to be a Herda, just like full on just boom, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, that's fantastic, that's exactly what I need. But I think that overall, you know, having a hyper carry kind of character that is like helping another one, it's kind of cool. And once again, it's very similar to what you said like earlier. It was just another Sparkle Sunday, similar idea, Bronya, but you know, it actually brings
Yeah.
kind of a cool instance, and I think you'll have fun with it, especially with your 17 skills you'll be able to pop out with your hyper carry and Axa. But it'll have
Yeah,
some cool,
I'll
interesting
have fun.
gameplay.
Yeah, it's basically the Sunday Sparkle equivalent, specifically for characters that deal skill damage. If your character deals ultimate damage primarily, you're not using Cerydra, you're using Sunday or Spark or whatever. If it, like in Aglaya's case, because she's basic attacks all day long, you obviously it's Sunday over Cerydra easily every day of the week. So it's just skill damage heavy, which kind of makes me wonder for future prospects. Okay, what is this going to look like for Saber? Maybe is she Saber's best in slot support? Maybe, or is that still Sunday? Like, what do we think there?
I mean, I think that she can still, once again, she's still hyper carry. So I was going to bring up Saber, and I'm glad you did, because I was going to say, you know, as a new unit that's going to be brought in, because I was kind of holding back on it, because I'm just want to talk about Fate 24/7.
You were letting me finish shilling about an Axa. So.
Yeah, so but I do think I was gonna bring up how Saber could still be a quick, you know, idea, and you could just double kind of bring together someone like Sunday and a character like Cerydra, and just kind of combo
Which is
those two characters
pretty similar
together.
to Finon's best team. You would do Finon, Sunday, Cerydra, and
You'd use Huohuo. You'd have to use Huohuo instead here, instead of using Huohuo on Finon, because that's not really going to work that well, in my personal
Right.
opinion, on using him with Finon. But for here, you would, because a character like
She actually has
Saber actually
energy.
really likes her ultimate. So yeah, using that would actually be fantastic. Obviously, everybody knows Excalibur and everything from her, so that makes the most sense why that
Yeah.
would be extremely strong there. But I think once again, overall, that's what's going to make most sense. It's just kind of a cool character. I mean, honestly, like if you at the very least, like the animations are really cool. I mean, it just looks like a fun character. Maybe an easy skip for some characters, and Hysilens, as much as we might be hyped for her, is probably a pretty good amount of a skip for a lot of people that just aren't DOT focused,
Right.
and maybe they just don't care about the Kafka changes, and you know, they don't have Black Swan or something like that. You know, there's definitely a lot of things that, depending on your account, it's going to change how you feel about these few characters for sure.
And of course, we'll talk more about that in like a to pull or not to pull for these characters when their banners are coming around. So.
Well, that's everything we've got talking about kind of everything for this past week on the GachaCast. If you guys did enjoy the video, please go ahead and like and subscribe. We went over a lot today. We talked about Imaginarium Theatre. I got to get my rant on Stygian Onslaught. We went all the way through the Gacha revenue. We talked about some Fate stuff kind of quickly, just to kind of give you guys that quick idea of what that looks like a little bit more, kind of helping from the past week. And honestly, even though we only had maybe like a few things to talk about, we really went in depth on kind of a bigger idea and broader idea about a lot of different things, obviously with the new characters that are dropping in Star Rail as well. So once again, if you guys did like the video, please go ahead and let us know in the comments. Let us know what you guys are looking for in the future as well. Once again, I do want to keep throwing out the idea of going out and taking a look at the video if you haven't already. We made a video with Jay Stern, we made it with Flip, Andad, and Red Warrior, or the Genshin Idiot as well. Kind of all those people, we kind of did an interesting, really cool video, and we'd love to do more in the future. We know it's got pretty good acceptance right now, and we're looking to kind of do something in the future, either with similar people, those people, or something else as well. So we're kind of trying to look at what we want to do in the future as well. So give us some ideas in the bottom as well, you know, either topics to talk about, people that you guys want to see as well. Talk to your favorite creators, see what they would think about the same idea, as we are kind of also jumping out to a bunch of people as well and letting them know. So once again, thank you guys for watching the video though. Hope you guys enjoyed this week's GachaCast. We'll see you guys next week.